Aji deshte freedom of press and journalistic ethics ono kriule National Press Day celebrate kurina. Dimapur Press Club National Press Day manaishe. Changing nature of press laga theme lohina. DBIL Hall de Don Bosco School Campus Dimapur de. Tier yim laga editor K Temjin Jamir pra kushe press laga nature do change hoiliwi tai laga purpose do change hua nai kushe. Ahiwi details sabo.
As we commemorate this day which we call the National Press Day, a day dedicated to celebrating the vital role of the press, not only in India, I believe it's all over the world. So this year, I think our theme is an apt reminder of a rapidly evolving media landscape in which we are operating. The digital revolution vis-a-vis instant news has reshaped our profession in ways and means we have never imagined, or we could have never imagined. And with that in context, we are here today to discuss the challenges and opportunities they present and to reaffirm our commitment to the profession. I am particularly excited and delighted to welcome Mr. K. Temjin Jamir, who is the publisher and editor of the Our Vernacular Tier Yum, as our team speaker. He is an entrepreneur, an activist, and also a media person. And he brings a wealth of experience and knowledge and insight, which I think we'll be hearing today and take back home and to our workplaces to think upon and consider. I also welcome the Public Relations Officer of Dimapur, Stephen Nguli, and also the publisher and editor of the Murung Express, who happens to be my boss, Dr. Akab Longchari. Let's make this day to renew our dedication to our job, our profession. Thank you for joining us, and I trust you will find today's program both engaging and enriching. Let the proceedings begin. I'll keep it short. Thank you all. Welcome all once again.
Friends, today is the Independence Day for all of us. When our press club approached me with a request to be the theme speaker today, I was just thinking what would be the day of this National Press Day for media persons. And immediately came to my mind was that, oh, it's no other than Independence Day for media persons. So 16 November is Independence Day for us as we come together to celebrate this National Press Day. 58 years ago, it was the day when Press Council of India as a statutory body was established and it started functioning not only as a moral watchdog, but also as a legal guardian for all of us to ensure that not only did the press maintain the high standards expected from this powerful medium, but also not fettered by the influence or threats of any power on earth. Most appropriately, this year, the Press Council of India has chosen today's theme as changing nature of press. It's very appropriate into this context. This theme is appropriate for obvious reason that actions of change dominates the first quarter of the 21st century, particularly with changing nature of press and reaching out the audience by technological advancement in the field of mass communication. It made me understand that today's theme wants to take us to the genesis of press, so that we may understand and visualize how difficult and laborious it was to bring news, and equally how it was dangerous to spread news and share ideas and information in early days of the press. As we discuss about the changing nature of press today, it is pertinent for us that we are also mindful about potential dangers and disadvantages of using the doors of new media so that changing of nature of press does not adversely affect our integrity and commitment to the cause we dearly hold and work fearlessly and tirelessly. As we look at the advantageous side of the changing nature of press, we see a number of good areas of communication that benefit us. Amongst them, after all, it's about mass communication. The benefit of connectivity comes first. It can link with countless users anytime, everywhere. Information could be permitted globally through electronics media, and making it simple and affordable to enable people to interact with one another. It results in global relationship, friendship, so every user of social media thus becomes world citizen. In that sense, we are proud to say that we are one of the main stakeholders that makes it happen every day. The sole purpose of media, be it print or electronics, be it traditional form of media or new media in modern world, is to reach out with a message. The only difference is the degree of vastness of time and vastness of area of coverage. Indeed, nature of press is changed, but not the purpose of press. That makes our calling more loud and serious. A new culture of communication brought by this digital age is online service, be it news services, commercial, religious, social, or even political affair. There is no more excuses for all of us in this world of new media for being unable to reach out. Modern communication technology that keeps unchanging the nature of press makes the tasks of media person, very fortunately, very conveniently, more easier, faster, and wider, but becomes more challenging as we are responsible for quality. We are responsible for quality and reliability of our own reports. As we endeavor to know more about fast-changing nature of media, what actually we ought to communicate or deliver to people as media persons, it must be our committed moral and social responsibility to let people know their rights and their duties, and the most importantly, keep them informed and updated so that they are not misled. They are nor misled, neither deprived. As we celebrate our National Press Day today, on the theme, Changing Nature of Press, as media persons, all of us, in this era of fast-changing nature of press, we must think seriously how we are delivering our reports in terms of fastness, relevancy, accuracy, and reliability. We must also change our own mindset of dependency and make ourselves more proactive and trying to bring about a positive change in our people's lives by identifying their problems, needs, and also such as solutions.
The foundations of a free press are constant, and in fact we must find ways how to strengthen them. But yes, no doubt the forms have changed, and I think Tanjan has already elaborated in terms of the changing forms of the media. But I think the challenge is how do we actually apply these principles within these changing forms. One of the emerging trends that we see is that the gap between fact and feelings is going further apart. Fact, feelings. The fact of what happened on the ground and the feelings of the people. The gap between the fact and the feelings seem to be moving further and further apart. And most of you here, you are the first documenters of history, right? As journalists, as field reporters. You are the ones who, are writing the first draft of history. Is your draft based on feelings or is it based on fact? That's a question I want to ask you. And it seems to me the mainstream media is moving more towards feelings because feelings is what sells. Feelings is what attracts viewers and readers because sometimes the fact is very boring, very mundane. But it is so important as journalists, as field reporters, not to focus on the feelings, but to focus primarily on the fact. And that's why Tamjan was talking about being impartial. But this is perhaps the greatest challenge of our times, because the gap between fact and feelings is moving further apart. And when it moves further apart, then we are building a society that is not founded on the foundations of fact and truth, but on feelings. And once it is based on feelings, then our policies, our analysis, our understanding, then is driven by emotions and not based on the fact. And so as people that are working as the first responders, let me put it that way, as the first documenters of history, I urge all of us to reflect on this pertinent challenge of our times. We need to be based on fact and not on feelings. Now, when I say that, it's not to dismiss feelings. Feelings are important. All of us feel. And sometimes our feelings, are stronger than our understanding of the fact. It's not to dismiss it. And yet it is so critical that we are building a society based on fact and not just feelings. We now live in a world of images. People's understanding, perception, worldviews are shaped by images. What kind of, and when I say image, I'm not talking about, the public image, okay? But the image that we are processing through our minds and through what we see. And I'll come to that a little later. As we are, and like I said, I had these random thoughts. Is it possible, while grappling with fact and feelings and the changing forms of the media, is it possible for us to develop our own Naga understanding of what journalism and media means? And I think it becomes so pertinent in a globalized world that we need to develop a Naga understanding of what the media is and on what its founding values and principles would be. Today, when we look at across all platforms, traditional media and the new media, and we look at the spectrum of news that we have, it goes right from in-depth stories to press releases and even stories from colonies and some social group going for a picnic. That is how vast the idea of news has become in the Naga context. Sometimes when you look at it, there's an irony to it, right? That we move this so vast spectrum of news. Very early on, I used to say, I think we are more of a village diary than actually a newspaper. Because the papers, and of course today more so, the digital platform is not confined to news anymore. It's about opinions. It's about feelings at both the micro and the macro level. And somewhere along that, the actual news is getting lost. So within this changing form and nature of the media, I think it becomes so important for us to think and to visualize and to imagine what a Naga media would really look like. And so I would like to look at this as an emerging process. And I would encourage you, here we have an intergenerational group of people. We have individuals who have been working for a very long time. We have some newer ones, some not too young, not too old. I think that dialogue must continue. But to do that, we have to strengthen the media fraternity. Today is the Press Day. It's also a day to remember those who have come before us. It's also a day to celebrate the work that each one of you has done, to celebrate the media fraternity. It's also the day to remember those who have passed on, who are no longer here with us today. But most importantly, it's also a day to reflect, to engage in some form of self-criticism. Because if we are to understand the changing form and changing nature of the media, of the press, we need to also engage in some honest self-criticism. And so just a couple of random thoughts that come to my mind. We talk about press as being a freedom, but we also talk of press as being a responsibility. We also look at press as a form of power that gives voice to the voiceless, that holds the power to account. But we also recognize its limitations by law. And sometimes not just by law, but by the culture in which we live, depending on how we are grappling with the questions of fact and feelings. I would like to imagine that there are many more members of the press fraternity here in Dimapur. So sometimes it is discouraging to see. Of course, we have a good number here, but you get what I'm saying. It's just a fraction of who we are. And so how do we empower each other? How do we inspire each other? How do we look at the traditional media in the form of newspapers, predominantly in the Naga context, and the digital platform as media platforms that are complementary to each other? For traditional media, the idea of breaking news does not, for newspapers now, the idea of breaking news does not exist anymore, right? Now that is something that the digital media, the responsibility has fallen on them. But it becomes so much more important for the newspapers to reinvent themselves, to do what the digital media cannot do, which is to verify truth, verify facts, which is to have more in-depth stories. The forte is different of newspapers. The strength is different for newspapers. The strength of the digital platform is different. But we are all part of the same ecosystem. And so we must learn how to coexist together. We must learn how to complement each other. I think in Nagaland, we're still some distance away from that. And it is during days like that that we actually get an opportunity to share our experiences and to come together. After all, whether it is the print or whether it is the digital, we are part of the fourth pillar of democracy. And so within this changing form and changing nature of the press, we as the fourth pillar of democracy remains unchanged. And so we go back to that primary principle. But we live in a world of images, and so the credibility of the media becomes so important. If we want the public of the Naga society, if we want the public of Nagaland, if we want the public of this region to invest in the media as an institution of public service, you and I need to change. You and I need to change. The image that we present to the world around us needs to undergo some radical transformation. For instance, we need to be on time for reporting. Often we hear comments, reporters are the last one to come and they're the first one to leave. So what does it do to our credibility as reporters and as members of the media? The elephant in the room, and it has been on for quite some time, is this whole idea that people actually pay to be on the news. The PCI calls it paid news. But I think now in the Naga context, especially in the last few years, this is becoming an issue where people actually have to pay to be on the news. I know that as far as newspapers are concerned, every media organization has and continues to take steps in that. But it's in the new media that we need to address this as well. And remember, we are all part of the same ecosystem. It is difficult to talk about the voice out against a culture of corruption if the media is also taking resources to cover events. Isn't that a contradiction? And if that is a contradiction, where is our integrity? And where is our integrity? And if that is how the public perceives us, then can we claim that we are working towards being the fourth pillar of democracy? There cannot be a contradiction between the values and ideals that we stand for and how we as individuals are exercising, as reporters, as media, as sub-editors, editors, how we are exercising that freedom of that press. There cannot be a contradiction. I'm telling you, if we continue this way, the public will laugh at us because we'll become a laughing stock. It's the elephant in the room. Some of you may not feel comfortable hearing this, but it's the elephant in the room that has become part of the kitchen talk. And so, as reporters, as editors, sub-editors, we must also hold our publishers accountable, our editors accountable, to see and to ensure that the practice of every media organization is also consistent with the freedom and responsibilities of a free press. And actually that power is in your hands. And so I feel, perhaps the Nagaland Press Association has to be revived to be able to talk things like this. Because we don't have a body that allows us to come and talk about the challenges and opportunities that Inkong was talking about. We have different clubs. There may be various other bodies, but Nagaland Press Association, which was actually formed and here we have Timjan as the founding president, to enable editors, journalists, non-working journalists to interact and to contribute towards creating that ecosystem. So we need to recover something like the Nagaland Press Association to enable us to talk about the difficult issues that we're faced with. Some of these issues are ideological in terms of fact and feelings. Some of them are structural in terms of paid news. Some of them are functional issues in terms of the discipline, how we carry ourselves as reporters. Because I assure you, in every event that you go, you are identifiable. Some of you have your camera. You are noticeable, right? People, some of you are known by face, are known by name. People are watching you. And your reputation, your integrity is defined by that. You may write wonderful stories, but if your work discipline is missing, it takes away some of that impact. I don't mean to be preachy here, but it's a matter of fact. So changing forms and nature of the press is something that we're living right now. It's something that we're living right in this moment. I feel that in the future of the media is going to become even more important in the Naga context, because we are caught between facts and feelings. Whether you will have the courage to report based on the fact, or whether you will take the easy route of reporting the feelings, history will be the judge. Not your editors, not your publishers. It will be history. It will be the people who will hold you to account. Just as much as we hold the powers that be to account, we are also accountable to the people, because the media is an institution of public service. And so, friends, on this day, let us reflect together. Let us understand together. And perhaps this is just the beginning of a lengthy process that we must engage in. There are many elephants in the room that we must confront. There are many elephants in the room that we must engage with. Some of the elephants the publishers will have to take into account and address. Some of the elephants in the room is the journalists, is the sub-editors, is the non-working journalists who will have to confront it.